Stop. I can't take it anymore.
Oh, I do the live ones too. Yes, I know. I saw your act in the theater. You're really quite good.
Hello and welcome back. We are breaking up with RBS. This is episode number 13. I'm Tawny Santabria.
And I'm JDK Winnikin. We are here to debunk the junk.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. You know, I was just thinking, I never get tired of that music.
I love that music.
I know it sets the tone perfectly for being in here, at least.
Yes.
Might be a little hard for those listening on 106.9 Warm at 5 a.m.
I've done that myself.
Yeah.
Yes.
But nevertheless, if you are one of those early morning listeners, thank you for doing so, and good morning to you. Otherwise, if you're catching us on one of your favorite podcast platforms or on our YouTube channel at Breaking Up with RBS, welcome to you as well. Thanks for coming back in to spend some time with us. And last week was really fun. We ended up talking about parenting, or started that process.
Yes.
And then decided we wanted to keep going with that. And it's
rich with BS stories.
It is rich with BS stories. And, you know, and I wanted to mention to listeners, you know, every part of our life is fertile ground for storytelling. It can be, and as we've talked in other episodes, the big stories tend to be the ones that can really dominate our emotional states. But even little stories around little things can have a cascading effect. So you mentioned last time, I think really astutely, that like the most important thing we can really do is recognize the stories when we see them.
Yes.
You know, or when, and maybe by extension, if we're aware of stories, we can help other people, you know, our friends and our loved ones see those stories. And it just helps us all kind of get back to where we need to be. And that is in the moment. Right. So, but parenting kind of became the one because it's such a big deal and there's so many stories. So, yeah. So now I'm not a parent myself, but you are.
I am a parent. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I lived through. It's another story.
You lived through.
I lived through it. They're adults now. I feel pretty proud of myself.
Do you get a ribbon or a trophy?
I wish. But you know, I don't know of any. But yeah, it's a lot.
I would think
it's a lot. I mean, it's a lifetime of a lot, right?
Because it doesn't really stop, right? I mean, your kids are grown, but
yes,
you don't stop worrying about them, or you don't stop
thinking about
them,
or making up stories about them, things like that, right? Because we don't ever, like, how do we learn to be parents?
Well, I mean, the initial thing is we probably our own experience, right? Is where we start.
So learning on the job,
but we learn as when we're kids growing up, when we're still learning and everything else. So that's not going to be a complete lesson, obviously.
Right, because we're learning from a child perspective,
right,
or a young person perspective,
or a teenage perspective, which is crazy.
Right, like we don't have our wits about us.
Yeah. There's too many things going on as a teenager to be able to pay attention to that.
Right, so we're not really learning parenting.
Not really.
We're sort of watching two people who didn't learn it either.
Right.
Do parenting.
Right, and if you add in like some of the stuff we talked about last time. Perfectionism or things we've talked about previous episodes, that things should go a certain way, right? Yes. A family should look this way, or my children should be at this point with this by this point in time. Or it means this, right? Wow.
Yes.
I've talked about minefields of stories that minefield doesn't even begin to describe what parenting must be like as far as that's concerned.
No. Yeah. I mean, right. Like in every stage and phase is a little bit different, right? When baby comes home and you're brand new parents, you have all these sort of visions and ideas about what, you know, future life is going to look like and how things will be, not present. Right. But we have these things happen. And so the stories are already starting then.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Which doesn't necessarily, those types of things don't necessarily come from a bad place, right? I mean, you're hoping you want the best for,
yes.
You know,
I don't know if any of the stories really come from a bad place.
That's a good point.
Right. The stories come up and in the background, most parents are just trying to be the best parent they can be. That's way in the background. Right. And so how do we bring that forward? Right. Oftentimes, just a lot of stories attached to what it means to be a perfect parent, the right parent, do the right thing, be the right parents together if we're parents together.
Or the opposite.
Yeah. Right.
Or
So,
right.
so what does that look like? Because then there's another person involved. It's
Right.
not just ourself as a parent. It's our team as parents.
That's got its own relationship dynamic.
That has its own
Yeah.
BS stories,
And then
who you
school.
should be and how,
Yeah.
right? Then
And
how they
school.
should, how our kids should do in school
And sports.
and
activities.
sports. Yes.
Man.
And what kind of friend our kids should be.
What are the dangers threatening them in society or possibilities? Holy
what
cow.
sort of profession they might go into,
will they be happy? Will they be able to take care of themselves?
Yeah, the happy thing again. I love the happy thing. But like there's just this pressure that we put on ourselves as parents that it's sort of like my responsibility. I decided to have these kids. So my responsibility is to make sure they are happy. Right? Like, whoa. And they're a human being that's going to have a lot of different emotions.
Right. And different ideas.
And
different plans and different frameworks, different experiences.
Yes.
I mean, it to me, one of the, I have a niece and nephew who are both pretty grown by this point. But one of the things that I know I talked about with my sister and brother-in-law a lot was just the differences they faced, like in school, with something like bullying. Bullying was always on everybody's radar. It is, I think, to every kid and every teenager. But the idea that you can be bullied online didn't exist for us. So you went to school and you dealt with it at school, and then chances are when you came home, you wouldn't have to deal with it. It's a whole different experience that kids have today. So how does one with a certain set of experiences, when time passes by and kids are getting more, it's got to be really tough. And I know that that's something that parents talk a lot about, is how to relate and then how to protect.
Right. How to be a parent, or am I a friend, and comparing. We do this as parents too. I did this, like, well, when I was that age, we thought about it this way, or we did this, or I just knew, or I would never talk to my parents the way. And some of that's true. Like,
some of it can be true. Sure.
Right.
Sure.
But all of these are stories that take us out of what's actually happening or could be happening right now.
With ourselves and with the child.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Man. Well, and then it seems to me like, when I was thinking about this during the week when we decided we were going to talk about this, I was thinking about my own experience as an educator with various types of parents. And I've seen, I don't even know what all the different parenting styles or techniques or what all the terms are for them. I've just met a lot of different kinds of parents. And you're right, on the most basic level, like, they seem to want what's best for their kids, generally speaking. Obviously, if there's severe problems in the family, maybe not. But for the most part, I always had parents that deep down wanted the best for their kids, but I had ones who were just so, like, the helicopter parents, right? Or even worse. I don't even know what's worse than that, but the ones that are very controlling, the ones that are very want to have, I mean, I was teaching college, so I couldn't share very much. Kids are 18, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me, sir, ma'am, I can't share with you what's happening there. And I got yelled at a few times, for those things. And, and I've also been told, that because I don't have kids, I didn't necessarily understand all those things. And I get that. That's probably true on some level. At the same time, I've been around them a lot, and I've got a lot of friends and family that are parents, and it's I see the stories that people can tell. And in doing this work with you the last couple of years, it does provide a different set of lenses to be looking at all the things around me and my friends and family and how they do things, just to notice what those things are. And the good news is everything that we've been talking about is really helpful for parenting as well.
Yes. You said what's best for kids.
Mm.
And that's a story in of itself, because I think if we go by what's best for kids, does that mean that I'm thinking about on a how to be a parent to this particular child,
Right.
right? What's best for kids. We all have our own stories. I have a different thought about what's best for kids than other people.
Mm-hmm.
Not just me, other people have other thoughts about that too, but I've been in conversation before with people at a school setting about what's best for kids. And we're talking about a lot of just very different things.
in many different areas.
Yeah, what's best for kids,
Right.
right? And so that's the other part is I think that in and of itself, if we put that kind of requirement on ourselves,
Oh man, yeah.
what's best for kids? That's
Generally speaking, like a blanket
right,
statement.
right. That can be really tricky,
Right.
because that's not a present state. If we're a parent of this particular child, staying in connection with this particular child, no matter what,
Mm.
like in connection, not that doesn't mean we have to helicopter.
Right. Because that's protection.
Yeah, that's okay.
Overprotection.
I'll just do this for you
Yeah.
because then you'll have all the things I want for you.
Which is really about them.
It's really about them.
Because they don't want to worry about them.
Yeah.
Or it's a validation for them.
Or their story just is that, my parents weren't able to do much for me when I was growing up. So I'm going to do all that I can for my kids. But then that creates its own set of difficulties.
Everything other than empowering them to take care of themselves and find their own path. Everything other than that.
Right. I'll do everything except for that. Right. So our stories drive our experiences of being a parent.
Yeah.
And when we're exhausted and depleted because of the stories we're creating and sticking to, then we're not really going to be able to be in connection with our kids or do what's best for them anyway, because we've depleted and exhausted ourselves.
Yeah. And then it would seem to me that just then, if you're in that state, all the things that normally bedevil us as human beings that we've talked about before, looking at externals for trust, for validation, you can start doing that with your kids. Like, does my child fit in? No, my child needs to be doing these activities, or needs to be doing this, or needs to go to this school, or, needs to get this type of job so that they can make enough money and be okay. That's where all those things start to come in. And boy, those are all areas that we hear all the time are just rife with problems.
Yeah, and what we're doing then is stressing out our kids. The athletic piece, right? So at least up until COVID, and then COVID's kind of shifted some things a little bit, but at least up until then, see a lot of parents who would start kids out in sports really young, because if they didn't start out really young, then they wouldn't have the skill set to play in, middle school and high school, or play more competitively. And so then kids would have, 6, 7, 8-year-olds might be doing 2 different sports at once.
Yeah.
That's pretty stressful. And then I would see enough kids who would have been doing a sport for a pretty long time, and then high school would hit 10th grade or 11th grade. They're like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm retiring.
Yeah.
Right? It's not fun anymore.
Oh, that happened to me. I, when I was younger, I loved baseball and soccer. Those were the ones I liked the most. Those are the ones I feel like I was best at. And I didn't play them in high school. I played basketball in high school. And I liked playing basketball until I did 2 years of high school basketball, where they turned it into what felt more like a job than anything that was really fun. There was something lost there. And I had good coaches and all that, but it was more about what I knew was coming. Every step that I took up towards the varsity level got more and more intense, and more coaches were yelling a lot more and angry a lot more. And I wasn't used to that. I was so fortunate that I had coaches in those sports, in soccer and baseball growing up, who were just really great coaches and liked to have fun and reminded us it was supposed to be fun. And you could do your best and push yourself because you could discover more about yourself. You could find inner strength. You could always have fun. As soon as that changed, I was done. Now, thankfully, my parents didn't fight me on that. They're like, yep, that's, if you're not having fun, don't do it. And I kind of wish I would have played soccer instead. I think I might not have had the same experience then, but nevertheless, I've been there.
Yeah.
But I've also seen people, I've had friends who have had children quit sports, and it was a shock to the system for the parents.
Well, because there's the story of what sports is going to offer.
Right.
And if my child doesn't partake in sports, then they're not going to get
Teamwork.
all of the skills
Sacrifice
that we can only get from sports.
Wow. You can see it on the feed, but her eye roll was absolutely fantastic.
We can get it other places. But if we are enjoying sports and if we like sports and we want to participate in sports, yes, fantastic, right? Have at it.
Yeah.
But the stories we make up about what's possible and what's not possible with this opportunity or that opportunity or this behavior characteristic or this habitual pattern or whatever it is that we are telling ourselves. We take the play and the fun out of childhood if we're not careful.
Yeah, and then it seems sometimes, and I mean this gets, you see it in movies and things like that too, that a child instead finds something else, and there's tension over it, maybe in the house because it doesn't quite fit with a parent's image, or maybe they're worried about the child being treated differently, like they're going to join the chess club as opposed to the football team. What's that going to mean? Parents get really concerned about stigmas, those types of things, which are a thing. I get all that. But it seems to me that then if you're focused on all those things and you're not present, you might miss the signs of what might actually give all those things. It's not sports. Something that child is interested in moving forward, unique to them.
Yes.
Right. And then it sounds like what you're saying is the focus rather than on what's good for kids in general, even though those are probably worthwhile things to discuss. The focus of an individual parent should be on the individual kid.
Yeah. And if we can trust ourselves more as parents, we don't have to be perfect parents. We don't have to be, driving home this perfection, do it the best every single time kind of thing. If we are able to just stay in connection with our kids, we're going to learn a whole lot more, and we're still going to have some kind of reachability when they're teenagers. And that's probably really important. Right now, especially.
Yeah. It just gets me thinking about the things that I know I've seen parents really harp on now from education. Of course, it's usually grades. Importance of grades. And boy, some of the storytelling, my child needs to do well on this paper in your class. Because if they don't do well on this paper in this class, they're not going to do well in this class. And if they do well in this class, they're not going to do well in this semester. Their GPA will drop. If they don't do this well in this semester, it'll drop their overall GPA. And if their overall GPA drops, they're not going to be as competitive for whatever might be next, graduate school or a job or whatever. And suddenly it has spun, and it's not just in college. I've seen people do it and they're worried about how their kid's doing on a fifth grade history assignment for the same reason. Suddenly the catastrophizing of if my kid doesn't nail this down now, it means he or she is not going to be able to do this later. Even if it seems to me, I'm wondering what you think of this. It seems to me that even if you're not saying that outright to your child, they're able to pick up on that energy that's where this is going. If you don't do this way, you're not setting yourself up for something later on. That to me, and I have felt that way before in my own life, and I think it was from an understandable desire by my parents to see me do well in school and have options and have possibilities, right? And so I get that now as a grown adult. At the time, it was like, oh my God, I'll be all right. I'll be all right. Just relax a little. I'll be all right. I don't like this as much, right? or I'm not really into this right now. That's all this means. It seems to me it would be really easy as a parent to take one thing and turn it into something much bigger with multiple layers and multiple consequences.
Yeah. Well, no parent really wants to get it wrong,
Sure.
right? And we're coming into this without a whole lot. We don't have a rule book.
Right.
We didn't even learn anything.
Mhm.
I mean, there's books out there that'll tell you the right way to do things. And sometimes that magically works and you're like, "Wow, okay.
Sure.
Look at me. I'm doing such a good job. I did this one thing and then it's happening and look at that.
Look at
Wow.
that. Ba, ba,
Okay. Yeah.
ba.
And then it's like, I've tried everything in the books.
Mhm.
Nothing's working."
Yeah.
Right? And so
Scary for people.
yeah, scary, very
Scary.
scary for people. I mean, I think that parents, that see that as probably one of the most important jobs they're ever, if not the most important job that they're going to do
Yeah.
in their lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they want to get it right. But all of the stories about how you're supposed to get it right don't help us.
No. And then, of course, you can do all the same things we've been talking about for weeks now. You can compare yourself to others as a parent, compare your kids to others, compare their circumstances to others, right? Comparing your insides, how you feel about it, to other people's outsides, and social media doesn't help.
That's
right?
a whole nother layer.
Because it's like the rosiest of everything, right,
Mhm.
out there. And so if you're having a difficult time and everybody on your, on your friends list is seemingly putting out all the really rosy stuff,
Yes.
you're wondering if you missed the memo on how to be a good parent.
Yeah.
Man, it
Yeah,
just cuts
yeah.
to the core of who we are as people.
Yes, and then what you were talking about last time about how we can sort of get into our groups and support each other,
Yeah.
quotes, right? And validate these parenting stories.
Mhm.
Sometimes doesn't necessarily help or help us to see that,
Right.
wow, that's just a story that you don't have to hang on to.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stress and pressure around this right now.
Mhm.
And then when you look back as a parent, you go through, the different phases and stages of life. And then you look back into what you thought was a huge problem in 4th grade. You're like, "Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
this situation that's happening in
Mhm.
4th grade as we're trying to, you know, have a little bit more homework maybe." 4th grade is one of those grades where
Yeah.
things start to change a little bit.
Yeah.
It's less
Yeah.
about fun and
Yeah.
yeah. And so if we don't get this in 4th grade, like we're not gonna be able to do the rest of this whole school thing.
Mhm. Yeah.
And maybe it's not required to have that story or stress in to that degree because, all the parents that made it through
Yeah.
with their child in 4th grade, they look back at 8th grade and for the most part, well, they don't even remember 4th grade.
Right. And something you might not be interested in or be as good at in 4th grade, you might find your traction in 8th grade.
Yes.
With a good teacher. I mean, that happened with me. I did not do well in any science. There were so many details, so many things I had to remember. I struggled with that.
Mhm.
And then when I was in high school, when I took an earth science class, I
Mhm.
realized I really liked earth science, volcanoes and
Mhm.
earthquakes,
Mhm.
that kind of stuff I could connect with. And then I got really interested in astronomy and how all that stuff worked. I wasn't able to grasp that,
Mhm.
in 4th grade.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, we can get caught up in the
Mhm.
shoulds.
Yes.
Should know this by now, or these types of
Mhm.
things. Yeah.
Mhm.
So in the limited time we have left, I mean, obviously
Yes.
we're not gonna stay with just this episode, right? About parenting.
Right.
We're gonna keep going.
We're gonna keep going.
Okay.
Yes. We're looking for parents.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. We'd like to hear from some parents on this
There's
because
a lot of them out there.
there are a lot. They seem to be everywhere.
I know.
And certainly we're talking in a lot of different issues. We're just kind of popcorning these things. And again, just stay with us. We're just coming from curiosity and wondering.
Mhm.
We'd like to hear from some parents and maybe share
Mhm.
some stories that you've got, and maybe we can get some specific ones that we can
Yes.
take a look at. If any of you are willing to
Mhm.
step up and do that and
Yeah. Yeah.
be a
Whether the
part.
stories are sort of like not parenting the way your parents parented,
Right.
right?
Right.
And sort of battling with all of those stories
Yeah.
that you had growing up
Eh,
as a kid.
Right.
Or the stories are related to single parenthood,
Sure.
right? We can we have a lot of stories about that as far as how good of a parent we can be. So
yeah, I think this is good. I think the more to start talking about these things like parenting and other specifics, I think seems like the natural place to go next. So that's great. So we'd love to hear from you in the meantime. And if you're interested in sharing a story or coming on the show, we can arrange that. You can reach out to us at our Facebook page, our Facebook group, which you can join. Just look for Breaking Up with Our BS, spell out the word. You can find us there. You can also email us at buwabthepodcast@gmail.com. And certainly you can leave comments on YouTube, whatever you like. We'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to chat with you and talk about these stories on the air. So between now and next time, what would you like people to be doing? Just besides that, bringing up stories.
Well, we'd love to hear the stories. So please bring up the stories. There's so many different ways to contact us. But the noticing, I know I go back to the noticing every episode.
It's key.
But it is key. If we don't notice we're in the story, we don't even notice often. We don't even know that there's a choice. And so we've got to notice. Yeah.
All right. Well, okay. So next time we'll have more on this. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Breaking Up with Our BS. I am JDK Winnikin.
And I am Tawny Santabria.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
All right.
How you all feel tonight?
Stop. I can't take it anymore.
Oh, I do the live ones too. Yes, I know. I saw your act in the theater. You're really quite good.
Quite a certain harmful habit.
Stop it now, I need it.
I don't think he felt anything after the crash.
Usa que anillo.
I'm in my groove. Here we go.